Here's a post from a blog I loved very much. It's since deactivated, but she wrote this on May 17th, 2018. I can't pronounce it, it's in French. Here's the title on the screen. She wrote, "On het and bi radical feminists. I'm glad I stopped interacting with the radfem community on Tumblr, as it's just a festering pit of lesbophobia, but I still find really inane critiques of my old posts from rad and rad-leading women at times, and it's just so tedious. Because when you've read enough of the same arguments and patterns, you start seeing them in a big picture way, not as arguing over a particular issue, but as revealing a deep-rooted, unrelenting investment in males and heterosexuality. That's really all there is to it. Whatever they might say, the vast majority of bi and het radfems are deeply attached to men and the heterosocial foundation and the privileges they gain from it. They will never stand for too strong a criticism of it. They will never want to jeopardize it, even if it means tacitly endorsing the continuation of men's global wide-scale terrorism of women." These seem like very grandiloquent words to discuss tedious Tumblr discourse, but of course small issues can reveal people's deeper convictions and worldviews. To give examples, I'm thinking of two posts, among others. The former is a male-loving woman crying about lesbians using words like bi-het or handmaiden, and she literally just accuses lesbians of heterophobia over and over again. Punishing any woman for her sexuality is gross. Women do not get to choose their sexual orientation. Let's cease putting down women because of who they sleep with. Isn't the point of rad feminism to lift each other up? So why are bisexual and straight women the exception? Even ignoring her conviction that radical feminism should be about lesbians lifting up their oppressor group, it really is mind-boggling to me how bi-het women are dead convinced that lesbians are not only being lifted up by radfems, but are the only group within radical feminism being supported, while bi and het women are not. Heterophobia is rampant within feminism. She also accuses lesbians of biphobia, which, again, means accusing us of heterophobia, since it amounts to believing homosexuals can oppress het-attracted people. Trans activists would be proud of all these bold reversals of reality. It's funny to me that male-loving women radfems will complain that words critical of their sexuality, like bi-het, are misogyny, but will also appropriate instances of obvious lesbophobia and claim it is really misogyny and hurts all women. When they can use lesbophobia to make themselves seem attacked, they do. When they have to use heterophobia to make themselves seem attacked, they do. What they want isn't logical consistency, but to make sure feminist discussions remain centered on bi-het women at all times in a way that absolves them of everything and doesn't make them feel uncomfortable. The second post is just vague blogging about my post critical of fatherhood that completely misses the point. It starts with, "The argument that fathers are useless or that men are not capable of raising children is a deeply anti-feminist statement." Again, this is baffling reversal and very revealing of who she thinks feminism is for. She explains it with, "Saying that only women, or worse, only mothers, are needed or qualified to do the overwhelming, lonely, and repetitive work of raising small children just reinforces unfair gendered expectations." What I was saying is that only the people who do not belong to the group that has more than 96% of all child rapists, that's men, just in case, should be considered qualified to be around children. All the feminist criticism of my post has been about mothers' rights and mothers' freedoms, while I wrote it with the children in mind, after hearing about a baby raped to death by a male relative. I may be simple-minded, but it's really baffling when what you say is, women caregivers do not rape children to death, and what people reply is, it's problematic and bad feminist praxis to expect men to not care for children. I don't care, honestly. I just want little girls not to be raped to death. Some feminists seem to completely forget that girl children are also part of the group female people that feminism claims to fight for. Not to be even more controversial, but I have found that these feminists are more likely to be het-attracted women, while lesbians in general seem to care and worry more about girl children as a group. If I had to find an explanation, I would say it is out of instinctive sympathy toward a fellow group of female people who should not have to deal with male sexuality under any circumstances, and yet are surrounded by it every day and keep being harmed by it. Lesbians are able to empathize more viscerally with how fucked up that is. One thing Tumblr taught me is that wanting to engage with male sexuality dramatically hinders your empathy toward women who don't. These women's mindset also strikes me as, why focus on girls rather than grown women? I survived girlhood after all, and I'm never going to be a little girl again, so what's in it for me? And it's easier to focus on women and argue that they need a co-parent, a male one for unexplained reasons, so they can have a life or go back to work, than to focus on children and somehow find a feminist way to make the argument that a male presence in the home is safe and beneficial to little girls. I am talking about girl children being hurt by men, physically or psychologically, and they ignore it to remain dead focused on mothers' freedoms and rights to have a male around, which means dead focused on bi-het women. Basically, everything radical feminism produces is for and about bi-het women and their right to live the life they wanted. For example, a life that includes males and safeguards heterosexual privileges. To sum it up, feminism, radical or not, is just het couple therapy. The one thing that would actually give the biggest impact, pushing men out of as many aspects of their life as they can, is the one thing they will never consider doing. Their feminism is nothing but a gimmick built around this core of loyalty to men to make themselves feel better. I suspect that one thing they love about radical feminism is the male socialization theory, which absolves men of being categorically flawed. The main difference between them and libfems is that libfems say that men are not awful, only a small minority of them are, so there's no need to ponder uncomfortable thoughts like whether we are right to continue loving and fucking them. While radfems say most men are awful, but it's not their fault, they were only taught wrong and can be taught better. So there's no need to ponder uncomfortable thoughts like whether we are right to continue loving and fucking them. When you really look at what these women are saying, what people or what small issues received most of their scorn and criticism, the sheer amount of posts critical of mean lesbians using mean words versus posts critical of men, you realize that they see themselves as radical due to criticizing some patriarchal institutions that libfems won't touch, but that they will never accept to question their selfish attachment to the few harmful patriarchal institutions, fatherhood, hetero relationships, etc., that happen to coincide with what they personally want out of life. Of course, they often just so happen to coincide with their main source of privilege. For all their lip service about supporting lesbians and lifting up girls, they give absolutely no fucks about these two parts of the female population who stand to gain nothing and continue being hurt from their support of their pet patriarchal institutions. To the point where some even call us insane, verbatim, for calling fatherhood or the hetero pairing institutions and seeing them as the crucial patriarchal pillars they are. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that father's rights and the right to be provided with a girlfriend are the two issues MRAs are most passionate about and most want enshrined into law. Listen to what bi-het radfems say in response to these kinds of points. Do you just expect women? Do you just expect me to stop dating men and be lonely and sad? None of it is actually about other women and rational feminist analysis and what courses of action have the best chances of liberating women as a whole from the male oppression. It's about them and their feelings and what they personally want out of life. There is nothing radical or feminist about it.